In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers were found dead in the frozen Ural Mountains. They had fled their tent in the dead of night, half-dressed, into nearly 30 degrees of frost, and they had cut their way out through the canvas wall from the inside. Some had crushed skulls and broken ribs, yet no wounds on their skin. One was missing her eyes and her tongue. To this day, no one knows for certain what they were running from. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident.
They were led by Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old and already a seasoned mountaineer. Most of the others were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, young, disciplined, and in love with the wild. In late January, 10 of them set out by train and truck toward the far north.
But one of them never reached the mountains. Yuri Yudin fell ill and turned back at the last settlement, saying goodbye to his friends in the snow. It was a decision that would save his life and leave him the only one of them to ever grow old.
Their goal was a remote peak called Otorten, deep in uninhabited wilderness. It was the hardest class of route, and they understood the dangers of the cold. The native Mansi people had their own name for the ridge they would have to cross. They called it Kolat Siachel, Dead Mountain. On the 1st of February, they began to climb. Then, instead of camping in the shelter of the forest below, they pitched their tent high on the open slope of Dead Mountain, fully exposed to the wind. Their very last photographs show them digging into the snow, smiling, unaware. What happened that night, no one alive ever saw. We know only what the snow remembered. At some point in the darkness, the hikers cut and tore their way out of the tent, not through the entrance, but straight through the canvas wall, and ran down the mountain into the freezing black, most without coats or boots. When the group failed to send word, a search party set out across the mountains. Weeks later, they found the tent on the slope, half collapsed under the snow and sliced open from within. Inside lay everything the hikers would have needed to survive. Their boots, their coats, their food, all left behind. From the tent, a line of footprints ran down the slope toward the distant forest. They had been made by bare feet, and feet wearing only socks. Strangely, the prints were calm and evenly spaced, not the scattering of a panicked stampede, before they vanished beneath the fresh snow.
A mile and a half down, at the very edge of the trees, stood a tall cedar. Beneath it, searchers found the first 2 bodies, near the ashes of a small fire. Branches were snapped off high up the trunk, as though someone had clawed their way into the tree in the dark. Both men had frozen to death. Between the cedar and the tent lay 3 more, including Igor Dyatlov himself. They had fallen facing back uphill, frozen in mid-crawl. As if, in their final moments, they had been desperately trying to fight their way back to the very camp they had fled.
But 4 of the hikers were still missing. The mountain kept them hidden all through the winter. Only in May, when the snow finally began to melt, were they found at last, buried under 4 meters of snow at the bottom of a ravine, deeper in the forest. And these 4 told a far darker story. They bore terrible injuries: a fractured skull, a chest crushed as if by an enormous force. Investigators would compare the trauma to a high-speed car crash, and yet there was almost no mark upon their skin, and no clear sign of who or what had done it. One of them, Lyudmila Dubinina, was found missing her tongue, her eyes, and part of her face. Traces of radiation were detected on some of their clothing. Each new discovery only deepened the mystery instead of solving it. After months of investigation, The Soviet authorities closed the case with a single, chilling sentence. The hikers, they wrote, had died because of a compelling natural force that they had been powerless to overcome. Then the files were sealed and locked away for decades. In the silence, the theories grew. An avalanche, hurricane-force winds screaming off the peak, a wave of infrasound that drove them mad with fear, secret military weapons tests, even something the Mansi believed still walked the mountain. Every explanation answered some of the facts, and then shattered on the rest. Decades later, scientists modeled a rare, delayed avalanche of slab snow that could explain much of what was found. Perhaps the closest we will ever come to the truth. But for the 9 who ran into the dark that night, the final answer went with them, beneath the snow of Dead Mountain.